base, it seems to go on and on forever. Then you get to the end and the gorilla starts throwing barrels at you. Whatever sci-fi universe brought you here, Magic's newest set has it all. Let's see what lies at the edge of Eternities. Welcome to Head Games.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is a Zombie Apocalypse, and I got a new job on this cool ship here, and they gave me this new red shirt and everything. Anyway, they just call me Steve here.
Red's a good color for you.
Yeah, I agree.
Hello again, friends and opponents. I'm JetterX, proud wearer of at least one Futurama tattoo, so you know that pretty much means I'm an expert in everything that has to do with science fiction.
That sounds quite appropriate. Anyway, thank you for joining us today on the Head Games Commander podcast, where we talk about the Magic the Gathering Commander format. Tim, so after hours of staring down this set and flying in all these spaceships, what are we talking about today?
We're getting lost in space, baby. And by that, of course, I mean we're breaking down the cards of Magic's newest set, Edge of Eternities. The cards that we're most excited about for our commander deck specifically. We like to focus on cards that we're looking to include in our current decks, with a few honorable mentions and maybe some additional commanders that we're thinking about building around.
But before we get to the fun stuff, we would like to take the opportunity to ask you all to like, subscribe, comment, do all the fancy YouTube things, and tell your friends about Head Games. So, Tim, we're going to start off with you. And what deck are we going to talk about a little bit first?
So the first deck I want to talk about today is Jolene the Plunder Queen. And remember that we're going to talk about a commander, and then we'll talk about a couple new cards from the set that we're thinking about for that deck. So if you've seen the show before, we've talked about this commander a few times. Jolene's a Gruul commander, 2 a red and a green, 2/2 human warrior. Whenever a player attacks one or more opponents, that attacking player creates a treasure token. If you would create one or more treasures, create those tokens +1, and you can sacrifice 5 treasures to put 5 +1/+1 counters on Jolene. So this is a Gruul Treasures Matter deck.
Okay.
And the first card that I'm going to think about putting in the deck is called Devastating Onslaught. This is a red sorcery, so it's double X and red. Create X tokens that are copies of target artifact or creature you control. Those tokens gain haste until end of turn, sacrificing them at the beginning of the next end step.
Tim, why are you doing this to me?
The reason that the reason I'm looking at this card is that some of the win conditions in Jolene's are just some of the win conditions in Jolene are kind of fireballs or red X spells that do damage. And this one might take one of those slots because it has the capacity to scale with what the deck is doing, and it does make an enormous amount of mana, but then it could make token copies of a lot of other things that are very, very relevant. Any creature that makes treasures when it enters, if you make a bunch of copies of that, you're going to get all those extra treasures, and for each individual one, Jolene adds an extra one, so you can really kind of scale very well there. But there's also scenarios in which you would, where you would copy a creature that does damage when treasures enter the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
So if you made a bunch of copies of that and then attacked and made 2 treasures with Jolene, and then all of those things trigger, you could close out the game. So I think that this might have a spot in one of those kind of win condition slots. What do you think?
Do you know what I think would be fun? 20 Goldspan dragons. Just putting it out there. That seems like a very easy thing to accomplish. One treasure.
You're not wrong. Like there are also very large creatures in the deck, and Goldspan Dragon is a great target because it's non-legendary, so obviously you'll get all the copies. All of them attack, all of them make treasures, all of the treasures sack for more. Yeah, that's a good choice. There's plenty of them though, and you know, the kind of sky's the limit with what this card could possibly do with the amount of mana this deck makes.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. Yeah, this card looks like a lot of fun. I could, like, if it, I would love to see something like this in Garth, but the problem is I don't attack with creatures, and I don't have enough art. Like if it said like artifact, enchantment, or creature, yo, if it said enchantment though, Tim, if it said enchantment, I would love this card.
Yeah. There's lots of historical precedent for red cards that do this specific thing, that make a copy of an artifact or creature that comes in with haste and sacrifices on the end step. And there's the cheapest one that exists, I believe, is Molten Duplication, which is 1 in a red. And that's like the deliberately powered up version of that card. Most of these effects are 3. So at the floor, this card does that. For 2 in a red, you copy 1 artifact or creature. You make 1 token copy of an artifact or creature that dies before the end of the turn. So that's the floor. And then the ceiling is as high as the mana that this deck can make, which it turns out is pretty high. So I think that, I'm definitely considering it, and I haven't seen how expensive this card is. I'd imagine that it's not very expensive, or that it won't be a top dollar card. So it should be fairly easy to get to slot into the deck.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that dragon that's legendary, but whenever other dragons enters, you make a whole bunch of treasures. I think it's like a 4-mana dragon. When it enters, or another dragon enters, you make a treasure. Is that in your list?
It's not. It's a 5. There are some dragons.
Well, no, I just think it would be really fascinating because you could use it almost as like a ramp piece. I'm going to make 10 copies of this dragon that makes 10 treasures for each dragon that entered. And then they all die to the legend rule, but you're left behind with like 100 treasures.
Yeah.
Because
maybe
why play cards that win you the game now when you can just win the game later? I like to play with my food, Tim.
But in this deck, it has a lot of things that do damage when artifacts enter, so that doesn't win you later. That wins you now.
That is also true.
And so maybe this card incentivizes me to then go back and look at that dragon.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's something worth thinking about.
Alrighty, and what's the next card we got for Jolene?
All right, the second card is probably the better of the two, and kind of because it does what I was just talking about to some extent. The card's Biotech Specialist. This is a red and a green for a 1/3 insect scientist. When it enters, it creates a lander token, which is the new rectangle in Edge of Eternities. It's basically an artifact that you pay 2 generic and rampant growth. So it makes a lander when it enters, and then the second line is whenever you sacrifice an artifact, this creature deals 2 damage to target opponent. So anytime you sacrifice a treasure, you are now shocking one of your opponent's faces. So this kind of slots in the 2-drop slot with a lot of the other cards that do something similar to this very effectively. But it also has that like making a lander token, because the deck accidentally has some kind of landfall qualities to it. So having the lander token's definitely not bad, and it is yet another thing that makes an artifact token enter. So this just slots in really well. It's like it was made for the deck, really. I can't, it's not going to change it and win me games necessarily, but it's definitely very good just in terms of value.
Oh, but see here, this is where I think you're wrong, Tim. I think this card wins you games. Just like even with Devastating Onslaught, make 20 copies of this and then crack 1 treasure.
Right.
Like that seems
good. So the cards go... Yeah, cards go together really well.
It also just goes... Because like how many... Like when you make 20 treasure tokens, like it doesn't matter that you only have 1 copy of these or 20 copies of these, because you're gonna crack these treasures, whether you're sacrificing them to Jolene, whether you're cracking it for mana, whether you're cracking those treasure tokens to crack the slander token. Like if you were to just crack 2 treasures to crack a lander token, you're dealing 6 damage to any one 6 damage split up amongst your opponents. I think this card wins games, hands down.
It does. What I meant was that it's like it's not necessarily this wild and splashy sorcery like the other card is,
Right.
but it is down here on the ground doing excellent work and getting that incremental damage that will eventually get you there. You're not wrong, because this deck does have the tendency to get 10 to 20 to a ridiculous number of tokens, and when that happens, if this hits the field, your opponents are definitely in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it also just works really good early on too. Like, I like it a lot. I think there's a lot of good things to say about it. I wanted to talk about that card, but you got to it first, and quite frankly, I don't have a Gruul deck right now, so you beat me to it. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and go to my first deck of the evening. We're going to talk about Taval the Balance Scale. Okay, he is a 4-mana Sultai commander. He is a 4/4 flyer. When Taval attacks, you mill 3 cards, then you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tap. And then whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Zombie druid creature token. The druid's important, people.
Yeah, druid matters.
So there's a lot of new toys for this set, and this card, the first card that I pick, isn't the splashiest of cards, but one thing that I like about it is it's low to the ground. Anyway, the card is Siege Ship Brood Tender. Okay, it is a 2-mana, a black and a green insect citizen. And when this creature enters, you mill 3 cards, and then you can pay 3, a black and a green, sacrifice this creature, return target creature or spacecraft from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery. One thing that I like about it is it enters in early, it mills me cards, and it's just another reanimation piece that I get to have access to. So
yeah,
it also, like, if I activate this and Taval's out on the battlefield, I get that creature and a 2/2. So it's nothing amazing, but I think it's a good card, and I think it definitely I can find room for it in the 99.
This strikes me as an upgraded Undead Butler, which you probably don't play with in the deck, but serves a very similar function,
right?
Where it, mills cards on it, enters, but then it gets something back, but it's better because it's a little bit bigger and it actually just straight up reanimates something instead of just getting it back to your hand when it dies. You have less hoops to jump through. So any deck that's in Golgari colors that is running Undead Butler can run this card instead, and it is just strictly an upgrade in almost every situation. I'm sure that there are some exceptions, but really finding a spot where there's a card that just mills a few cards but doesn't necessarily have more upside, this could definitely be a better option for that specific slot. So yeah, I mean, again, I know that you started off with kind of the lower rarity cards, but they really, you need them. You need the cards that are like gluing the deck together, and this card does both of the things that your deck wants to do, which is mill cards and get cards out of your graveyard.
Right. And I mean, every deck needs its fruits and vegetables, and these are just better fruits and vegetables than what it had before. So, like, I could even see
them organic.
Yeah, this is, yes, that's exactly right. So the next card I picked is also an uncommon. By the way, not on purpose. Just happened to be that way. This card could
have been a rare.
It absolutely should have been.
I just want to say it before. I really want to get it out there before you describe the card. Hot take, this card could have been a rare, and nobody would have blinked at it being a rare.
First of all, I'm just going to give you a little brief description. I'm not going to say the name, but it's a 2-mana 3/2. That alone says it's a rare, right? Like, am I crazy? I remember when, like, a 2-mana 2/1 used to be good, okay? A 2-mana 2/2 was good, right? Like, this is bonkers.
Yeah, anyway. There's in this set, there's a 2-mana 4/1 menace black creature with downside. This is stat-wise 3/2, so it has the same number, 4/1 versus 3/2. There's 5 in the power and toughness in a 2-mana spell, so with no downside. No downside.
Oh, there is nothing but upside on this card. Okay, so the card we're talking about is Umbral Kohler Zealot. It's a 2-mana human cleric, and it says sacrifice another creature or artifact, Surveil 1. Wow, that's one spicy meatball. Talk about filling your graveyard. And a lot of the times when I was playing Taval, because Taval is more of a combo deck, not a win by combat deck, I was finding myself not utilizing my 2/2 zombies very much. Guess what I can do with this? Utilize my 2/2 zombies, Tim.
To put more cards in your graveyard and keep the engine humming. Yes.
Wow. This thing's ridiculous. I don't know how it got away with uncommon.
Like, you know what's funny is that like getting bigger, like getting +1/+1 counters on it. So like think Bartolome del Presidio, which is still technically in standard and is a 2-mana card that allows you to sacrifice. I don't know if it includes artifacts either. It might. But the point being, getting +1/+1 counters actually feels worse than surveilling.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%.
In the decks that want to dump into the graveyard, having a card that sacrifices creatures to dump more cards into your graveyard, I think everybody agrees that this is going to be a powerhouse forever. It's just a remarkable card at uncommon.
All right, so hot take that's not actually all that hot. This is better than Faseus here, 100%. I'd rather pay the extra one and not be able to sacrifice itself, because what I end up happening a lot of the times, especially with Faseus here, I run into a card that I want to keep and then I can't keep doing it anymore. So like, oh, I just sacrifice my creatures to save them from being exiled or whatever. But here, I utilize my graveyard so well. I want that card. I want it in the graveyard. Like, it's okay for me to do that.
And you've really illustrated here why Surveil is in almost every situation better than Scry.
Yes.
Because you still have the option to leave the thing on top if you run into the thing that you absolutely must draw, but you get this other option. Like putting on the bottom of the library is basically saying, I'm never going to see this again.
Right.
Effectively. Obviously, there's exceptions. But dumping it into the graveyard is this secret third option that creates a whole new set of lines for you later. So like the fact that it is Surveil instead of Scry is remarkable.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that makes Viscera Seer on par with this is that it only costs 1.
Right. But it's a 1/1 versus really, a 3/2. This wins in a fight every day.
It does. We know that that's not as consequential in Commander, particularly.
I know. I had to throw shade.
if you're playing a high-powered Commander, the difference between getting a 1-mana sack outlet and a 2-mana sack outlet might actually mean something. So when I think of this card for, say, H and K for Hidetsugu and Kairi, which I just realized this should go in there.
100%.
When I thought, because there's probably a 3-mana sack outlet in there. I'm sure there's a Woe Strider in there.
Yep.
And this is immediately better than Woe Strider.
Yep.
So there's your answer. This uncommon totally made this old rare obsolete.
Alrighty, we're gonna head into Tim's next deck. What deck did you bring for us today?
So I'm never not going to talk about this deck unless they manage to print no white, black, or white and black in legendary creatures in a new set. So, of course, we are again talking about Ratadrabik of Urborg, which is quickly becoming my most powerful commander deck because I didn't build it to go infinite, but boy, it does almost every time.
Yep.
Because that's just what the deck is going to do. So for those who aren't familiar, Ratadrabik's 2, a white and a black for a 3/3 zombie wizard with vigilance and ward 2. Other zombies you control have vigilance, and whenever another legendary creature you control dies, create a token that's a copy, except it's not legendary, and it's a 2/2 zombie instead of 2/2 black zombie instead of its colors and types. So I built a Ratadrabik deck that only has legendary creatures in it, which feels like, sounds like a build restriction, but absolutely isn't. It really makes it so basically reads when every creature you control dies, you make a token copy as long as your commander's on board. So our first new card for Ratadrabik is beautiful. It is top tier. It's called Sir Vondum, Sunstar Exemplar. This is just one white, one black, 2 mana total for a 2/2 human knight with vigilance and menace. Whenever another creature you control dies or is put into exile, put a +1/+1 counter on Sir Vondum and gain a life.
Hi, Kitty.
Whenever Sir Vondum dies or is put into exile while its power is 4 or greater, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent.
Why are you doing this to me, Tim?
Why? Hold on. Yeah.
Kitty, no!
Don't mess up my curtains, Kitty. Yeah, so first off, if it just had the first half, if it just got bigger when other things died, because remember, the goal of the deck is to get multiple copies. So if my multiple copies of Sir Vondum, which always comes down before the commander, are getting bigger as other things are dying and gaining me life along the way, and they're vigilant and menace creatures, amazing. Perfect. It's already a 2/2. So, but that secondary effect of when it dies or is put into exile, as long as its power is 4 or more, which I can definitely get to with very little effort, it's blowing stuff up. And on top of it, like, you just gave me removal in a creature slot. Perfect.
Why does it say non-land permanent too? Like,
why does it say non-land permanent? Why does it say non-land permanent?
What's it the coast? Okay, I'm talking to you directly, okay? You can stop after 1 paragraph and the card still can be good, okay? You don't need 10 paragraphs, okay? I am tired of dying to 20 paragraphs on a card. I want my flavor text back. Back.
Seriously, where's our flavor text?
This card is bonkers. I don't need to say
really
anymore.
is, isn't it?
I don't need to say anything else.
No, it is. It's so good. It's
It's
like
so good.
it's like they printed it for Ratadrabik. It's like I don't know what you're trying to do here, but I love it.
Tim, do you work at Wizards of the Coast? Is this your announcement party? Are you just printing cards strictly for yourself? Or is there a non-disclosure agreement that we're not supposed to talk about?
All I can say is that it sure seems like it.
I cannot confirm or deny this statement.
I cannot confirm or deny any of that.
Alrighty, what's the next card we're talking about?
So this one's a bit more questionable. I'm not really sure if this one's going to go in or not. I'm curious to see how it fits and how it works out. So I'm talking about one of the spacecrafts from the set. It's called the Seriema. It's 1 and 2 white for a legendary artifact spacecraft. When it enters, search your library for a legendary creature card and put it in your hand. So it's tutor. And then it's got station, like all the spacecrafts do, which reads: tap another creature you control, put charge counters equal to its power on this spacecraft. Station only as a sorcery, and then it becomes an artifact creature once you get to 7 counters on it. And when it's an artifact creature, the Seriema is a 5/5 flyer that other tapped legendary creatures you control have indestructible.
So I just want to go to Magic Christmas Land here for a second. Just imagine having 2 of them, Tim. Because once it's a 5/5 and you sacrifice it, if you have a token doubler or some kind, or bring this back, and then the others cancel each, like, and everything is indestructible. Well, I guess your tokens wouldn't be. So, yeah, I could see this not making the final cut just because I forgot your tokens aren't legendary. So it's not as good. But, I mean, is 3 mana for a tutor that eventually turns into a 5/5 flyer? That doesn't seem bad either.
Right.
It also protects your Ratadrabik too. So, like,
it can, but here's the thing: you can only station at sorcery speed, so you can't like tap it to station it to make it, indestructible in response.
Right.
It only makes tapped legendary creatures. If it wasn't tapped,
I didn't even read that line.
If it wasn't tapped, I think it would be much, much better. And again, I still think it's a possibility. I'm very curious to see how this card goes. Also, very curious to kind of see how that interaction works, where, like, when you make the token copy of it, it no longer has the counters on it anymore. So is it not a creature anymore? I don't know. I think it's not.
Well, so
'Cause
the
it doesn't-
reason why I think it is because it says it's a 2/2 zombie in addition to its other types. So its base power would be a 2/2, and then you could station it or crew it or whatever the term is in this game. And then once you hit the 7 counters, it's a 5/5 instead. I think that's how that would work, but I could be wrong. But it wouldn't have, it wouldn't have the ability of making other tapped legendaries indestructible until you had the 7 counters on it. But I think it would be on the battlefield as a 2/2 no matter what.
So judges, if you're listening, please leave us some comments and let us know how wrong we are about this, because we disagree. I actually think it's probably not a creature. I think it makes a copy of it, but because it's not a creature. Like, so it can't have a power and toughness if it doesn't have creature as a type. And it doesn't say on Ratadrabic that it makes it a creature. It says copy this creature. So, but again, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised by either answer. I'd be very happy if the tokens were actually creatures, because that makes it way funnier and way more abusable, because then at that point you definitely get whatever cards you need out of the deck with like 1 or 2 sacrifices.
If that were the case, check this out. It could station itself.
And ultimately, the reason I think that this card might actually make the cut is that the more I play Ratadrabic, the more I realize that it is absolutely a combo deck, and it can win. There are a couple, like any of the Rings Tempt You creatures create infinite loops with Ratadrabic.
Yep.
So all you need is a aristocrat piece or a damage dealer, Ratadrabic, and one of the Rings Tempt You things.
Yeah.
So, right. It doesn't have to be Boromir. Boromir is an example of it, but any of the ones that do the Rings Tempt You, on either leaving or entering, they do the same thing. So the Sariema is a very cheap tutor that fits into the deck that gets me one of those pieces and gets me to the end. And obviously, it's not one of the overpowered game changer tutors.
Right. That's what I like about it. Yeah, I like the fact that it's a
thematic tutor.
Yeah. Yep. I like. When I run tutors, that's how I like my tutors to be a lot of the times. Unless if the deck is based off of one particular card or whatever, if there's like a hidden commander, like my Phage deck has a lot of tutors in it. That's just because there's so many pieces that I need in order to play Phage.
Right.
So I'm going to play all the tutors that I can just to get those pieces. But like most of my other decks don't run tutors at all, just because I like drawing cards. And spending all that time shuffling sucks. So we're going to go into my next deck. My next deck we're going to talk about Taval the Balanced Scale.
What does that do?
It is a 4-mana 4/4 with flying. Whenever it attacks, you're going to mill 3 cards and return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And then whenever 1 or more cards leave the graveyard, it's going to make a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. Okay.
I wonder how many times we can get away with this joke.
I'm going to go ahead and say at least one more time. So the first card we're going to talk about is yet again another uncommon. It's Timeline Kohler. It's a 2-mana Drix Warlock. It's a 2/2 haste, and you may cast this card from your graveyard using the Warp ability. And then its Warp ability costs a black and pay 2 life. And it's a 2/2. So the reason why I put this in the list is because this is a grave crawler that you have at home. Okay? Doesn't require another 2/2 zombie, or it doesn't need another zombie, even though getting zombies onto the battlefield is stupid easy in this deck, but it it makes the 2/2. So even if like I didn't have a zombie and I just have to vol, I can warp this in from my graveyard, pay 2 life to get another 2/2 zombie, and now my grave crawler does the loot, right? But this is a good grave crawler at home. So yeah, I'm not going to go infinite with this because I don't have like infinite life gain or anything like that anywhere. But like I sometimes don't need infinite to win the game. I just need 5 damage, or I need, 3 more creatures, or whatever it might be. So I figured having a second piece that can kind of go infinite doesn't seem bad. So this is a combo piece, people. Gotta watch out.
Yeah, and you're right. It's like it's redundancy. We're right where you need it. It does a fantastic Gravecrawler impression. And it will, if you have a sack outlet online, you'll play it for 2 life and a black, sacrifice it to get whatever effect. Maybe surveilling one. Who knows?
Who knows?
And so maybe for however much black mana you are getting this into play, surveilling that many cards, getting that many more zombies, surveilling more cards to get to whatever piece you're looking for to actually go infinite and actually win the game. So yeah, this is very low opportunity cost to include in the deck, and gives you another copy of those cards that really make the deck that create the pieces you need to win.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple card, but I kind of like it a lot. So. Alrighty, the next card on my list is Ice Till Explorer. It is a 4-mana 2/4 Insect Scout. And it says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. You may play lands from your graveyard. Whenever a land you control enters, fill a card. I'm sorry, excuse me? This literally does everything I wanted to do and so much more. Like,
Yeah, so what did they shove together there? It's like they shoved together
Exploration, Crucible, and a weaker version of the crab. The crab that mills 3 cards when a land enters.
Yeah.
And if you were to play all 3 of those cards separately, it costs more than this card. Do you know what else is crazy? If I'm not mistaken, I have more power and toughness too. Even if it's Ramanad Excavator, right? Like it's
for 1 more mana. Like Ramanov is 3 and it's a 2/3. So for 1 more mana, you get it's a 3/4, right?
This is a 2/4, yeah.
2/4.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1 more toughness. So 1 more toughness, the addition of getting an extra land drop and the landfall ability that mills cards, because like really so many of the landfall decks or so many of the lands matter decks are doing something with their graveyard as well. I mean, you've had several decks that have done that. I've had several decks that have done that. This card is just, it feels really pushed. And there's a part of me, it's like they really have inundated us with this like play land from your graveyard cards, and this one just takes the cake. It is so dang good.
Hey Tim, I have some good news though. Come join me in the sun. It has flavor text. It has flavor text, people.
Oh.
But on a serious note,
I wish I knew what the hell it was talking about.
I'll go out and join you in the sun. But
Beach party.
Yeah. This card's absolutely ridiculous in every sense of the word. So, all right. Now, Tim, are we talking about the same deck again, or are you going to be actually talking about other decks?
I'm going to talk about yet a different deck.
Oh, you're crazy. You're crazy.
What's very funny is that the card that we just talked about could go in this deck. And probably should. I'm talking about the Wise Mothman, my old Fallout savior. Sultai Commander 1 and Sultai for a 3/3 insect mutant. It's flying. The Wise Mothman enters or attacks players. Each player gets a bad counter. I'm not going to say what that does. Figure it out. When 1 or more non-land cards are milled, Put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures, where X is the number of non-land cards milled this way. So this commander cares about milling. It's essentially like a Graveyard Matters deck to some extent, but it's also got kind of a +1 counter sub theme and a milling sub theme. So any card that says mill cards, any card that says manipulates +1/+1 counters, all of those are going to be relevant in the old Wise Mothman. So the first card we're talking about for our friend is Ouroboros, which is a new mythic green, 2/2 green for a 1/3 plant worm. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is this creature's power. So absolute floor. This comes out in a vacuum. It's a 1/3, gives itself a counter. Now it's a 2/4. Doesn't feel great. But if you have any way of pumping its power, or if you have more than just any creatures, because all of the creatures get the counter, this gets out of hand very quickly. So I figure in the Wise Mothman, because when I mill things, I can put counters, it shouldn't be too tough for me to get extra counters on Ouroboros, even the turn it comes in before it goes off, which then gives counters to all of my other creatures and just makes everybody have a good time.
It turns out the Wise Mothman also flies. And when you put a lot of counters on that creature, it will kill you in one shot.
It does it. It does do that.
Yeah. And when you put counters on all your creatures, we all just die.
And so and Ouroboros, I've had a little fun playing with it in standard so far, and it really does have this effect where it's like you put counters on Ouroboros and it's as good as putting counters on all of your stuff, because that's exactly what it does. So you prioritize, you just slam counters on that, and then when that ability triggers, now your whole army's huge. It's just basically a very decently costed way of making your entire board very, very big.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about this card, because I probably was going to talk about this card as an honorable mention, just because I like this card as much as I just like this card a lot, and I don't necessarily have a deck that it would go great in, because I don't have like a +1/+1 counter deck, but this is definitely something that I'm going to keep on my radar for the rest of my life, because this card can just win you games.
I was saying that the place where it probably goes a little better is actually the deck that we reviewed a few weeks ago, which is the Tidus deck.
Yeah.
But it's very good in that deck, because it does come down after Tidus, but it's going to put a counter on. Again, it's going to put a counter on every creature that you have the very first turn it comes into play.
Yep.
Unless you can give it extra counters, which if you have Tidus in play, Tidus can transfer a counter to it before it triggers, and then it gives everybody 2 counters.
That's funny. That's nasty.
Yeah.
Alrighty, what's the next card on your list?
Next card is Terra Symbiosis. This is a green enchantment, 2 and a green. Whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, you may draw that many cards. Do this only once each turn. So worded very specifically, so that if you get 1 +1/+1 counter, you can draw a card, but if you put multiple counters, a single instance of multiple counters on a creature, you get cards equal to the number of counters that you put on. So this has the upside of probably drawing you more than 1 card each time it triggers, if you have any kind of counter doubler. So hardened scales plus this equals every time a creature gets a counter, you get 2 cards once a turn.
So I will say, here's the cool thing about this, and since it's you may draw that many cards, you don't have to do it the first time in order to get. So let's say if whatever you're doing puts 1 counter on something, but the next thing you're going to do is going to put 10 counters on something, but you needed that 1 counter, you can say, nah, I don't want to draw 1 card. Then you play the thing that gives you 10 counters, and then you draw 10 cards, and that's really great. I'm glad that you don't have to do it on the first time it happens. I'm glad it's just when this happens, you can do this. If you don't, you can do it. It triggers each time, which is really sweet. Yeah, this card looks like a lot of fun. I wish, personally,
and it's one of these.
I would wish it would instead of just +1/+1 counters, I wish it just said counters. Because imagine this on Indominus Rex Alpha. I'm going to put 6 counters on it, and then I'm going to draw 6 cards and draw 6 cards.
As though that deck didn't already have enough drawing in it.
Tim. You can never have too much card draw.
I think this card could go in there, even as is, because you have a lot of +1/+1 counters energies.
It wouldn't be as good as like the Wise Mothman. So, alrighty. So I guess it's time for us to go into my next deck.
Who are you going to talk about?
So my next deck is we're going to talk about Taval the Balanced Scale. It's a 4-mana 4/4 flying whenever he attacks, I mill 3 cards. And then I can return a land from my graveyard to my battlefield. And then whenever a card leaves the graveyard, I can make a 2/2 black zombie creature token. It's amazing.
What a good card. What cards are you going to add to that deck?
All right, so now we're getting into the spicy stuff, okay? We talked about all the uncommons that I wanted to add. Now we're going to talk about mythics. And the first one we're going to talk about is Famished World Sire. It says 8 mana, I win the game. No, it actually says it's a Leviathan with Ward 3 because why not? Devour lands 3. So as this creature enters, you may sacrifice any number of lands. It enters with 3 times that many +1/+1 counters on it. When this creature enters, look at the top X cards of your library where X is the creature's power. Put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. This card just does so much. I wouldn't be surprised if half the time that I cast this card, I am sacking every single land. I would not be surprised. I mean,
how many do you have like mass reanimate a bunch of lands?
Oh, of course. I have I think 4 or 5 cards.
My question wasn't Yeah, my question wasn't do you have it. My question was how many do you have?
I believe I'm at 4 or 5.
That's what I was digging.
Yeah, I believe I'm at 4 or 5. Yeah,
that's solid. Yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, with especially when you know that you have that ability, this card becomes even because it's like it takes all the lands out of your deck, and then if you can then also bring all the ones back that you got, you have all the lands out of your deck. It's just gross.
Yeah, just gross. And honestly, like the fact that it's a creature doesn't really matter to me. The fact that it's going to be a big creature doesn't really matter to me. It's the fact that so what happens to the cards that I just look at and then put them top X cards of your library where X is the number of put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield and then shuffle. Oh, you just shuffle your library afterwards. Okay.
Right, because it says the way it's worded is look at the cards, so they are still technically in your library while you're doing all of this.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so so it's a less confusing way of saying you're going to shuffle those cards you don't put onto the battlefield back into your library.
Right.
It's just it's funny because it feels like less confusing in one way and more confusing in another.
Yeah, I like this card a lot, man. It's just going to get me so many lands. And it turns out I lied. I am talking about another uncommon here. Okay.
What's going on with you?
I was woefully unprepared. I should have definitely chose my order a little bit better. So we're going to talk about Pull Through the Weft. It's a 3 and 2 green. It's a sorcery. It says return up to 2 target non-land permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand, and then return up to 2 target land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Okay, I do have one question. How many zombies do I get from Taval? Just one?
One, I think.
Okay, I wasn't sure how that worked because it's like 2 separate sentences. That's like one says return up to 2 target non-land permanents and put them from my graveyard to my hand, and then I guess it's the same sentence. Then return up to 2. Yes,
Yeah, it's not like if you do this, then do this. So it doesn't the first part doesn't trigger the second part. It's
It
all one resolution. So
it
I'm fairly
also
sure it's just
says it
one.
also just says whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard. So yeah, I only get one.
Right. But if it did trigger it, if it's like sometimes you do have a card where it says do this thing, and then if this happened, do this other thing. So sometimes you get triggered effects even off of a sorcery after the fact. So
Mhm.
if it was separate things hitting the stack, you might get more than one. But I think in this case, it's just one instance.
What I like about this card is
Yep.
it's 5 mana to get me 4 cards back. That's how I'm really looking at this thing. And 2 of the cards go onto the battlefield. And it's the important
Yeah.
ones. It's the lands.
Yep.
Because one of those lands that I could put from my graveyard to the battlefield? Glacial Chasm. Why not?
Right.
So yeah, I just like this card a lot. And what I like about it is also it says target non-land permanent card. Oh, permanent card. So I mean, most of my cards in that deck are permanents anyway. I'm not getting like
Right.
Splendid Reclamation, but like that's fine when I have the bear that does the same thing. So yeah, I think I don't know if it will make the final cut, but I think this is something that could do well in the list that I might be willing to try out.
I think you could try it out in one of the mass land reanimation slots.
Oh, instead
Because
of
it does. Because I mean, it feels similar to that effect. It's just instead of getting all of your lands, which sometimes is not as many as you want it to be. Right?
Mhm.
Like sometimes you've only got a small handful of lands in your deck. So am I casting a Splendid Reclamation for 3 lands? I mean, that's a fair ramp spell, 4 mana for 3 lands. Or am I casting this for 5, getting 2 of those lands,
Right.
and then 2 of the other permanent spells that made their way into my graveyard? I think that you might consider those spots to be similar enough that you could get it in there.
I will say the only interesting thing is like I took out Titania, Protector of Argoth, the 5 mana 5/3 elemental lady that whenever you sack a land you get a 5/3 and then it returns a land from your graveyard to play. I took her out because in this particular setup I don't sacrifice lands as much as I did in the Jund version of this deck. And I wasn't making the 5/3s as often, and quite frankly, with it being a combo deck, I don't need the 5/3s. And then only paying 5 mana just to get 1 land from my graveyard to the battlefield felt like it was too much. So, but this gets 2, and then it also gets 2 other things. So I mean, it's pay 4, draw 2, and ramp 2.
If Titania were still in the deck, that's where I would put them.
Right.
Easy swap out just to see if this is doing what you want it to do. But I do think a lot of the mass land reanimation spells are either cheaper or they have upside at 5 mana. So, but yeah, I would definitely take a look at those to see if you can make some room for it. Just to give it a try to see if like that having that value, because it is more combo-y.
Yeah. All right. So what Tim, I know you are a reasonable human being and didn't basically do just a deck tech this episode. So what deck did you bring today?
So the 4th commander I'm going to talk about today is the Gitrog Ravenous Ride. So this is a pet deck of mine. I've always loved the Gitrog monster. I built the original version of it a long time ago, but then I built the cowboy hat version of it, which thankfully they didn't put a cowboy hat on the frog itself, but he is eating a bunch of cowboys in the picture, which I think is very thematic for how I feel about that set. So the Gitrog Ravenous Ride is 5 mana for a 6/5 frog horror mount with trample and haste. When Gitrog deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that saddled it this turn. If you do, draw X cards, then put up to X lands from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. Saddles for 1, which basically means any creature with power can get on the Gitrog and go for a ride and probably get eaten in the process. So this deck is built around kind of power matters, big power Golgari creatures, getting them into play, and really has kind of that secondary get extra lands into play sub theme. So it plays a lot of creatures with power and toughness equal to the number of lands I control because they get out of hand very quickly. And keep that in mind as I kind of talk about the other cards that we're going to maybe add to this deck. So the first one is our first planet of today, and it is the black one. I'm gonna butcher the name. I think it is Susor Sukundi, the Void Altar. So this is a land planet. It enters tapped, makes a black mana, and it stations like the battle stations do, or like the starships do. So it requires 12 power to get its ability. The ability is one and a black, pay 2 life, sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. So the reason I'm interested in looking at this for the deck is the opportunity cost, again, is very, very low. This deck gets creatures out, and it often has really gigantic creatures that don't necessarily have any evasion. So, or maybe I got a couple of giant creatures in play this turn and I don't have anything to do with them and I'm not really feeling it. So I actually think that in this deck particularly, getting 12 power is not out of the question. Having a single creature with 12 power is not out of the question. And I'm not going to use them until next turn
Like
to saddle
or something,
up the Gitrog.
right?
And any of the stars equal to lands get very big very quickly. So activating this is not going to be difficult, and you can activate it the turn it comes in, even though it's tapped. You can't use it that turn, but you can get it stationed that turn, and it's a land. So unlike the starships that become creatures when they get stationed, this is just always a land. So it's much harder to remove, and then after that, now at instant speed, oh, I'm sorry, not at instant speed, activate only as a sorcery, but on my turn, I'm drawing cards equal to, however many lands I control.
The best part about it is when you can do it. So you saddle, get Rog, then you sacrifice to draw 12 cards. Oh, wait, I guess it doesn't work that way because you're supposed to sacrifice it with get Rog too, right?
Man. Right. So we can't have magic Christmas land because Gitrog is pretty absurd to begin with. Like the way that it snowballs is really absurd. So again, is this gonna like revolutionize the deck? Not even a little, but this is the deck for it. This is the deck where this card is like, I could very easily slot this into a swamp spot and not feel bad about it at all. And then sometimes if I'm behind and I have a creature, I'm going to be able to play that creature, hold priority, sacrifice it, and draw a bunch of cards to get back in the game. So I like it a lot for resilience.
Yeah, no, I like this card a lot. How well do you think the green planet would do in that list?
Do I need the mana? So the green planet that Zombie's talking about is effectively a Gaia's Cradle with the same things. So it's a land, it's green, enters tapped. You have to put 12 power into it to activate it. Then you pay a green and tap it and get a green for each creature you control. So this isn't necessarily a go wide deck. It does end up with a lot of creatures on the battlefield most of the time.
It's because you have so much mana, right?
Right. Right, you have so much mana, plays with things like Galta Stampede Tyrant, which just dumps your whole hand. So, like, it really can get a lot of creatures into play. I mean, probably. Again, opportunity cost very
is
low.
What, a forest, right? Like,
yeah, and it does come in tap. But again, Gitrog does this funny thing where when it gets that activation, it's dumping a bunch of lands, and that's the perfect time to throw tap lands in because they're coming in tapped anyway.
Right.
So, really... I think it probably could if I can get my hands on one and it's not overly inflated price-wise.
Alrighty. Yeah, I think this card's really good, and you hit all the nails on the head on this one. So what's the next one we're going to talk about?
The next one, I think, while it's not going to revolutionize the deck, I do think it adds a powerful angle to it. And the card's called Might Form Harmonizer. This is a 4 mana, 4/4 in green, 2 and 2 green. It's an insect druid, and it has landfall that says, whenever a land you control enters, double the power of target creature you control until end of turn. So it may feel a little clunky with when the stuff happens with Gitrog because all those lands are coming in at the end and then it's doubling power after combat has been done. But remember that there's a lot of things in the deck that then care about the power,
Mm-hmm.
including Gerard.
I was gonna say,
So
I was gonna say this is just like the fling side of the deck, right? Like you just bump
right.
it up to 1,000 and then go nuts.
And that's exactly it. So Gerard's in the deck and can sacrifice a creature and deal damage to its power to the table. Might Form Harmonizer with that on the table means when I get that landfall, when I get all those lands in play from Gitrog's trigger, something's going to get huge, or multiple things are going to get huge, and really everybody's going to die. So it actually incentivizes me to put more fling style effects in the deck, which I actually think I should.
You
Like
absolutely should.
I haven't refined that deck in a little while, but really I do like because again the star creatures equal to lands, they get up to 20 plus power all the time, so one landfall makes them lethal threats.
I want to say there's at least 3 or 4 mono black flings that are sorceries, but they also deal with loss of life instead of damage a lot of the times. So it's like I'll take the trade off. I'll do it at sorcery speed, but murder everybody.
Yeah,
It seems pretty good to me.
And that's the color that I'm in. So I think Might Form Harmonizer might make its way in, maybe even shift me towards a more fling style deck, because that is what Gitrog does. It makes all of those creatures in my deck just enormously big.
Alrighty. So we're gonna talk about another deck here.
Which one is it?
It's Garth One-Eyed. Holy shit, I picked another holy I picked another deck. We finally got there. So Garth One-Eyed, he is a Wooburg commander for 5, and it says choose a card name that hasn't been chosen among Disenchant, Brain Geyser, Terror, Shivan Dragon, Regrowth, Black Lotus. Create a copy of that card with the chosen name. You may cast that copy. You still pay its cost. Okay. The text box isn't really what the deck does. It is a door to nothingness deck that kills everyone with doors. So picking cards for this deck is very difficult, but I think I picked out 2 really good ones. And the first one it's the anti-casual vintage. And anyway,
Perfect.
it's anti-costal vestige, something. Anti-casual vintage. It's a 6 mana Eldrazi. It's when this card leaves the battlefield, draw a card, then you may play a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. And then it also has Warp 4. The reason why I picked this card is I don't necessarily ramp my lands, but I do not miss my land drops. So, realistically speaking, this is going to get me, like, I'm going to get whatever it is on curve, but then I get something else as well. I don't think I would ever really necessarily need to cast it for 6. I'm probably only ever going to warp it in for 4 because it is a leaves trigger and I'm not really sacrificing my creatures all that much.
Right.
So, but that to me says pay 4, get the 7/5 for a turn that I refuse to attack with. And then at the end of my turn, I'm going to play Mission to Mind Cage for free.
Yeah, I think that this card is a fascinating design. I think that we could spend a lot of time talking about, where could this go? And the neat thing about it is it's a colorless card. So the answer is it could go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I would urge everybody to consider, like, what do you get for 4 mana, assuming that you have 4 lands to cast this, right? So you draw an additional card and then you get to put something into play that costs 4 or less. So you really don't lose out on anything. You just drew a card in addition, and then this sits over in exile for you to cast later. And you're right, the leaves effect means that you have to jump through hoops to make it happen after you've cast it for 6. But you're right that this scales later into the game. This scales and lets you cheat something expensive in later in the game, as long as you have more lands. So you get to turn 7 or 8, you've got 8 lands out. You warp this in for 4 on your end step. You're dumping something that has 7 or 8 onto the battlefield for half the cost.
Yep. I did think of a way of doing it again, and that is my Terror in the command zone, baby.
Yes.
It's not an artifact.
Creature. Non-black, not artifact.
It's not an artifact. It may be colorless, but it ain't an artifact, people. I'm going to tear this biznitch.
Yeah. There you go.
I mean, I run a lot of board wipes too, so I mean, there's lots of things that can happen that can make me want to do it. So, as I said, I think it's a fascinating card. I would like to play around with it just to see how it interacts, but honestly, I don't think it will make the final cut long term. But I think it's a fun card, and I think it would be interesting to play. The next card I could 100% see going into this list. It's 0 Point Ballad. It is an X and black. It says destroy all creatures with toughness X or less. You lose X life. If X is 6 or more, return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. So how I look at this card is it is a board wipe that scales with mana, which isn't a problem for Garth. It also resets my Garth.
Yep.
And that's what's important. Because after I cast Black Lotus and Brain Geyser, guess what I want to do? Cast another Black Lotus and Brain Geyser. So here we go. Like, this is perfect. Yeah, I'll lose 6 life, but and quite frankly, life is a resource, and I'm just gonna. Doesn't matter if I win at 1, because I will win at 1. Because it will get to a certain point in the game where you're not going to be able to hurt me. Like, that's what the deck does. It's a slow build up of control. I'll wipe the board 2 or 3 times. I will play my pillow fort pieces, and then you can just never get through. And then I'm just going to door everyone to death. It's not a fast combo deck, but it is a combo deck that controls the board pretty well.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see if this is strong enough, in fact, to be in one of your, your mass removal slots. It could be, and the fact that it is exactly the kind of mass removal that also puts you right back where you want to be, because you really only need that one creature to come back. So I get it. I can see why this was attractive to you. I'll be interested to see if it can get into one of those spots.
I definitely think this thing can swing for the fences. And I mean, honestly, this works good in a lot of decks. Like, this would work really good into Vol. This would work really good in pretty much any of my black decks. Like, it would work really good in Phage and other things like that. I think this is honestly like a really good black board wipe if you can make a lot of mana.
I can put it in Gitrog.
You really could.
And I can make it localized so it wipes out everybody's medium creatures and all of my gargantuan creatures live.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I like I wouldn't call it a better than Toxic Deluge because this requires more mana, but I kind of like it better than Toxic because you're also getting a creature back. Yeah. Presuming X is 6, so for 7 mana, it reanimates a creature that was there. Seems great.
Yeah. Excellent. Great choice.
Alrighty, so we're done talking about the decks that we are talking about. Now we're going to talk about honorable mentions because sometimes we just can't talk about enough. So Tim, what's your honorable mention today?
We got to talk about this card. And again, I don't have a plot spot for it today, but I'm sure that one's going to happen eventually. And I'm talking about the End Stone. This is a 7-mana legendary artifact that reads, whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card.
Yeah.
At the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your starting life total rounded up. So, I mean, that second piece feels like a pretty significant downside, but 20 is not zero. And as my friend said, life is a resource. You don't, as long as you're not at zero, dying some other way, you are still alive. So I just don't see that secondary effect as really being all that much of a downside, especially if you're playing with something like a 7 mana artifact here. This just feels very much like a combo piece to me, that like when you get to a point where all of your artifacts are really really cheap or really really free, like every colorless deck ever, this comes out and you just mill right through your entire not mill draw right through your entire library and dump a whole bunch of things onto the board. So I'm very interested to see what people do with this card. I think that it's pretty remarkable.
How do you think this would do in Garth? Because I think it could do well. It means the lands that I'm playing are drawing me cards. It's like I'm gonna be casting spells. Like getting to 7 mana isn't horrible. I just would have to be very careful at the end of the game when it gets to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to draw my whole library. If this is out, I have to be like, okay, I'm drawing all but like 3 or 4 cards and then hoping I can, or like drawing all but 10 cards. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to not necessarily win, but like I don't want to kill myself, because it is not you may. It's whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card. So I mean, the problem is like I have a disenchant in my command zone, but if I'm brain geysering, I can't disenchant. Right? I don't know.
Interesting. It's a great question, and that's the kind of the reason that I wanted to talk about it is I think that there's a lot of places where we could look at this and go, could I make this work? Because really we've seen these effects in other places. Like we've got green and blue effects that allow us to draw cards when when we play lands, but this does all of those things together when you cast spells and when you play lands. So, but it is 7 mana. I think it'd be interesting to see in Garth and to see if you could really make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably proxy it up and see what happens. Or who knows, when we go to Atlanta, I might just buy a copy, depending if it's not super expensive.
Ooh.
By the way, we're going to Atlanta. You should come see us there.
If you're going to be at MagicCon Atlanta, come out and see us.
Alrighty, so we're going to talk about one more card on my end here, and I do have a home for this, but I couldn't find a second card that I wanted to put in there. That's why we did it the way we did it. But we're going to talk about Hylia, Guided by Light. She is a 3 mana legendary creature, human soldier. Whenever Hylia or another creature or artifact you control enters, you gain 1 life. Then at the beginning of your end step, draw a card if you gain 3 or more life. And then it can warp for 1 white. It's just another Soul Sister for Bilbo. It's really cool that it gains life for the food tokens that I'm potentially making sometimes. It's also hard draw. It's not really hard for me to gain 3 life in Bilbo. Even with Bilbo on the battlefield and I, warp her in, I'm still gaining 2 life off of that. So really all I have to do is just one more thing, which quite frankly isn't difficult to do.
Then you draw a card.
Then I draw a card.
The battlefield.
And then I can cast her the next turn or whatever. So I mean, I don't think Bilbo can have too many Soul Sisters. And just giving me one more.
Yeah, this card slots into that perfectly. It's the old Gaffer and a Soul Sister rolled into one with the additional warp ability. It also gains you life on artifacts entering too.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, when you're getting food tokens, you get it when they enter, and then also if you've got Bilbo out, now you're getting two when they enter. Yeah, this card slots into that deck very perfectly. I think we'll see this card a lot in Commander because anybody who's playing any kind of life gain synergies is going to want this because not only is it another Soul Sister, but it also draws cards. So this is, I imagine that this will be a decently, probably not incredibly expensive card, but like moderately costed card. This
It
will be
is currently sitting at 71 cents.
71 cents. Get out of town.
I am
Go
on
buy
Friday.
these.
I am on Friday. I'm going out of town on Friday. No, but just in Magic Christmas Land, right? Bilbo, this, and I just play Farmer Cotton.
Mm-hmm.
So for every extra mana that I spent into Farmer Cotton gets me 4 life.
Yep. Excellent. Perfect.
Love it.
I thought about putting this in Ratadrabic, to be honest. It almost made my Ratadrabic list, right? Because really, like, a lot of those aristocratic effects drain life, but also gain life. So
honestly, I think it would be good for you. Like, I could see this making it in pretty easily.
Yep,
because
multiple copies of the card.
You're going to gain life from those 2/2 zombies coming into play. Like, you gaining 3 life from this would not be very difficult. And then you can have 2 of them that, like, you can have 100 of them because Ratadrabic's stupid and should be on the game changer list. I'm talking to you, Wizards of the Coast. Don't put it on the game changer list. I'm only joking. But that card's fun.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into the final section, and we're going to talk about a couple of decks that we might be kind of excited to build. So, Tim, what's the card you picked? Well, cards we picked too.
I will say that both people are openly and loudly excited about, and I put them on the list just because I wanted to talk about them a little bit. I have a little deck building fatigue from building a bunch of Final Fantasy decks, so I don't know where I'm at in terms of building a new deck soon. But both of these are very interesting because of what they do. The first one is Tanuk, the Steadfast Second. This is the mono red Tanuk. And again, I'm not the only person who's brought this up because it's a fascinating card. 2 and 2 red for a 3/5 Kavu pilot. Kavu in space.
Kavu in space.
Other creatures you control have haste, which is really important for the next part. Artifacts and red creatures cards you have in your hand have warp 2 and a red. So it is essentially sneak attack.
Mm-hmm.
Although like with some downside and some upside. So again, you want to play with artifacts and red creatures that are expensive but have really remarkable either enters or leaves abilities, not dies but leaves. And remembering that you don't permanently lose the things, they just go into exile and you can cast them again later. So there's a huge upside to this. And, I had not usually somebody who builds mono-colored commanders not as a rule. It's just not something I've ever been interested in. But boy, this is interesting. This is very fascinating to kind of think about all of the things that you could warp in for 3 mana, like, Cityscape Leveler, because here's the fun thing about warp, it's casting the card.
Mm-hmm.
So so you can't do Eldrazi because they're not artifacts or red creatures, or at least most of them are neither of those things, but whole world of other fun things to do with this in terms of entering or leaving. And because of Tanuk, those creatures also have haste, so they can get an attack trigger in if you want as well. So lots of fun things that you can do with this commander.
I have 2 things to say about this card. One, Painter Servant is a card that is no longer on the ban list, which turns everything red, even if it's not on the battlefield. So there goes your Eldrazi.
Yep.
Second thing,
there you are. You're welcome.
The question I wanted to bring up was the one creature that has Prototype, the red creature, that if you cast it for its full cost, you get, 3 copies that are, I think, 9/9s or something. You know who I'm talking about? It's in my Harrogast deck list.
I do.
How does that work
I don't
with
remember
this?
the name of the card, but so prototype is a different casting cost. So prototype changes the text box on the card if you choose to play it for its prototype cost. So if you warped this, you'd be warping the full version, I think.
Yeah, let me
I'll look up the card while we're talking about it. Why don't you tell us about your first commander, and I'll look up
my
the card
first
you're talking
commander is also Tanuk Memorial Ensign. The reason why I picked this card is it's a 3-mana Gruul commander and says landfall whenever a land enters you control or enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then if this is the second time you this ability resolves, you draw a card. I didn't pick this as a commander because of what the ability is. I just wanted as many colors as possible and make a Kavu tribal deck. Because Kavu's in space.
I really hope that this becomes a thing, and I'm really disappointed that one of the precons wasn't Caboose in space. They
I'm
really
very
missed out
upset
on an
about it.
opportunity here for folks like you and I. I would have been into it. I think everybody would have.
Oh my god, Caboose!
And it's not a bad card, and I don't know, it's obviously kind of a meme choice, but like it's a decent card, and it certainly slots into a lot of other places. But as far as 3-mana commanders go, you could do worse.
All right, so the card I was talking about is where'd he go?
It's called Skitter. It's called Skitter Beam Battalion. It's a 9-mana artifact creature. It's a 4/4 trample haste, and when it enters, if you cast it, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. Prototype reads: you may cast this spell with a different mana cost, color, and size. It keeps its abilities and types. So the answer is, if you warp this, you get 3 4/4s.
Gross.
Yep.
And then you get to cast it later.
Then you get to cast it later.
I like it. I like it. But yeah, I feel like Hairgast and this deck kind of are almost the same. I think Hairgast.
I bet they're very similar.
I think Hairgast. I like Hairgast a little bit better because I like the mathing of it. I like how it's just basically a whole bunch of aliens popping out of people's chests. But I think it's a lot of fun. All right, let's go ahead and get back to your second commander. Which one did you pick?
So the second one that I picked is the 5-color spacecraft from the set, and the card is called Infinite Guideline Station. And it is Wooburg, so 5-color legendary artifact spacecraft. So it's got station like we described before. When this enters, create a tapped 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature for each multicolored permanent you control. Stations for 12. Then it becomes a 7/15 flying. Whenever it attacks, draw a card for each multicolored permanent you control.
I think this deck would be interesting. It would. I feel like it would.
I think you can do almost.
It goes along aligns with like Ramos. I think where you're just getting as many creatures and spells that have multicolored. I mean, Ramos fits in the 99 of this very, very well.
Sure.
And I just think it's a fun card. I like that it draws you a lot of cards. Like it just does everything that I like to see in a commander. It makes tokens, it draws you cards, and it eventually is just a big beat stick that kills people. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and it's like you could do a lot of different things with it. Like really, just having it be multicolored leaves the whole world, whole universe, whole galaxy open for you in terms of like how you choose to theme this.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested to see how people build around this. And again, 5-color commander at on the floor, 4/5 mana, you get a whole boatload of 2/2 robots. They come in tap, which is kind of a big downside because you can't station it immediately, but you don't necessarily want to. You don't really want to station it until the second turn because then it can immediately attack and get the benefit of it. So having a 5-mana commander that isn't a creature and can't be targeted with creature removal or wraths on the first turn it's there, maybe not a downside. So I'm very interested to see what people do with this deck, because I think that it is just a wide open playing field in terms of how you choose to build it.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. So the second deck that I picked is very outside my comfort zone. It is Boros. It is Sammy.
You're just saying that because that's white red.
Yeah. It's Sammy, Wildcat Captain. It is a 6 mana for a red and a white. Human Artificer Rogue. It's a 4/4 double strike vigilance. And then its spells you cast have affinity for artifacts.
Is that good? Is affinity for artifacts good?
Some would say.
Have some of the most busted decks of all time been affinity for artifact decks?
It's weird how that happens. So, okay, so here's why I picked this one. There is a card that is an old favorite of mine. Came out all the way back in 5th Dawn. Back when I was a teenager. God, make me feel old. It is Mycosynth Golem. It is an 11 mana artifact creature that says it's a 4/5. It has affinity for artifacts, but it gives all artifact creatures affinity for artifacts. I played that in standard. It was a lot of fun. I was in a pro tour, not pro tour, but I was in regionals once. And then a judge got called on me because someone thought I was cheating because I played Darksteel Colossus in my Infinity deck. And they were like, no way, that's not real. Like, it can't be. And then I proceeded to mop the floor with them. Anyway, that's what this does in the command zone. So
yeah,
it just makes me excited. I would love to try it out. The only concern that I have is that there is no blue. How do I draw cards? How do I draw cards, Tim?
There's ways, I guess, in white and red.
One of my favorite things to do in that deck was to play Rush for Knowledge, which says draw 11 cards. Rush for Knowledge is a 5 mana sorcery that says draw cards equal to the highest converted mana cost, because that was the thing that happened in Scourge, because apparently mana cost was the thing that they worried about back in the day. In fact, back in Scourge, there was a 1 mana morph creature that costs 7. So you could flip it up and be like, oh, by the way, I have an 8-drop that's a 1/1. Because that's a card that exists, people.
Yep.
Anyway, I think this would be I think this would be a fun deck to build around. I wouldn't build it the stereotypical, hey, I'm just going to play a whole bunch of equipment. I'm going to give them equipment affinity for artifacts so I can play even more equipment for free, and then just equip them and win that way. I think it would work really, really well that way, because you have like Pure Steel Paladin, you have all the Saram, like you have all these things that draw cards when you play equipment and stuff. But that's the right way to play this card. I wanted to play it my way. I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think that you could do a actual artifact deck with this. Like I really do. That is much more dedicated to artifact ramp and card draw. That's just in the, and really the answer to how do you draw cards is with artifacts. Is that you find good artifact card draw that you then get out for very free. So it's maybe kind of an eggs deck, with then maybe some very, very expensive artifacts at the top end. I think this could be pretty explosive, and I'm sure you could break it. So why don't you take a stab at it? I wanted to see you build this deck.
Or you build it as like a treasure deck, and then you're double dipping, because you determine X. You determine X before you cast the spell. Right? So like let's just like assume Fireball, right? You determine what X is before you have to start tapping for mana. So let's say I have 20 treasure. I say X is 40. For 1 red and my 20 treasures, I'm doming someone for 40. If I'm not mistaken.
Or you're casting Devastating Onslaught, the card I talked about earlier, to make 20 copies of something that's in play, and
Right. But my point
20
still
Solemn Simulacrums.
exactly. That's how you win games. 20
That's how you win it.
20 sad robots.
20 sad robots. That's how you win the
Yeah.
game. No, build it. Build it. I think I've seen you bust so many things that had just like I remember the last Boros commander, that Osgear guy that you built. It's like I've seen you bust a number of these, so
Yeah.
I'd be very curious to see what you came up with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I am going on vacation and we do need another podcast episode when we get back, so who knows?
Right.
Who knows? Alrighty.
All right. That's it. Friends, opponents, our journey through the stars has come to an end for now. Thank you as always for spending time with us on the Head Games Commander podcast. Remember that you can support this show and all of our other content by watching this and other videos on our YouTube channel and by checking out our streams on Twitch and YouTube. You can find those links in the description.
But before we scoop things up, we want to hear from you, the think tank. Which cards from Edge of Eternities are you adding to your commander decks? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for playing along with us and have a wonderful day. I said bye in space. See how you couldn't hear me? Bye.